Welcome everybody to the 17th edition of the virtual lounge session. I understand there would be some new members who have joined in today. So for their benefit, allow me a few minutes to introduce the concept of virtual lounge session. This is an initiative by the Jamalpur Alumni Association. It is a once in a month get together on this Zoom platform. We invite a speaker and he shares his thoughts on his experiences, his interests, and his knowledge for about half an hour, followed by a discussion. So we've had this going for the last 1.5 years. Today we have K Narayan, 88 batch, and he will be speaking on repaying the debt. This is the why and how of, and the joy of giving back to society. Narayan was with the railways for 22 years. He had also come on deputation to Concord, where he was involved with the CSR work. And then he went on to become the CEO and managing director of a CPSC, which was also involved in the social sector. He is currently the honorary chairman of Mahavir International, involved in the health sector, and a treasurer of Godhuli, working with education of street children. He's a mentor to SPYM, another NGO, Meher Foundation, and Six Sigma Elder Care. He's also the managing trustee of the Gymkhana Benevolent Trust and the treasurer of this Jamalpur Alumni Association, which brings the virtual lounge sessions to you. Today, we have decided to tweak the timing to 7 p.m. India because we found that there is a large body of alumni which is based out of North America who expressed their desire to join in to the lounge sessions. And in deference to their desire, we are hoping that they will be participating live. Of course, the sessions are recorded. So after a very brief editing, we do put it on YouTube. So those of you who miss out can always go and search virtual lounge sessions on YouTube, JAA, and can have the benefit of viewing the past sessions as well. So with that, I'll hand over to Narayan and look forward to an invigorating session with you, Narayan.
Once again, thank you all for joining over here. And this is a presentation which it's a talk along with a presentation which I thought would be nice to do about repaying the debt to the society. And it is more about my learnings in social work. A bit of what I've been doing is probably already been mentioned in that brief précis which Virdi sir had sent. So, again, I would like to confess that what I'm saying is nothing which is based on any sort of theory or any readings that I've done. It is purely based on my experiences, and it's what I see it as. And I'm sure there may be other ways of looking at it, and I welcome that also. Agar kuch pata chale in what how else we can actually improve on doing whatever we are doing, I'll be most happy to get those feedbacks. With that, I start. So, first coming to what is social work. So, as I see it, it's all this. When I say of repaying a debt, because you see, when normally we talk of social work, we talk of giving back to the society, but repaying a debt is a term which I learned from a gentleman uh, who was around 80 years old, who is a US based Indian, a pass out of DCE, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but was one who has contributed nearly around I think around $200,000 to various charities in which I'm involved. And we somehow managed to get a small clipping of, when he had addressed a group of youth who were being, trained for being general duty assistants. It was like a small skill development program we are doing. So I've got that, and I'll just try and play that right now.
पाकिस्तान से इधर आए थे, हमारे पास कुछ नहीं था, 6 बहन भाई थे, माँ बाप थे, इतनी जगह में हम रहते थे, जितना मतलब यहाँ से लेके, और जो मेरा स्कूल था उसमें ना कोई दरवाजा था ना खिड़की थी, और टीचर की कुर्सी को मैं घर लेके आता था सिर पे उठा के, ताकि कोई ले ना जाए। तो मैंने वो चीजें देखी हैं गरीबी में। उसके बाद कई लोगों ने हमारी मदद की, धीरे धीरे पढ़ लिए, हम अमेरिका पहुंच गए। पर हम हमेशा सोचते हैं कि उन लोगों ने जिन्होंने हमारी मदद की थी उनका उधार है हम पे, जो हम आपको मदद करने के लिए, कोशिश करने के लिए फंडिंग करते हैं। हम कुछ नहीं दे रहे हैं, उधार उतार रहे हैं। और मैं ये चाहूंगा कि जब आप लोग पढ़ लिख के अच्छी नौकरी हो जाए, तो आप भी ये कोशिश करना कि जो आपके पीछे हैं उनको कैसे मदद मिले कोर्स करके, ताकि वो भी आगे बढ़ जाए।
So this was a small part of what he spoke, and it really put things in a different perspective, because till then मैं ये सोच रहा था, we are doing something of giving back to the society कि हम कुछ बन गए, but actually हम तो उधार चुका रहे हैं. And when I thought about it, like joined Jamalpur at the age of 17 and a half. Where else do you get free education along with stipend, where you got to do so many things, then a full job. 15 years I worked in railways and went to Concor, and they are giving me full pension. Uh, I just do not know, how much of all this I'm deserving, because there is so much out there. So many people who are really working so hard for me to get. Even when I think about that pension of mine, it's of course the taxpayers' money. So somewhere that feeling is always that kuch to hame karna hai. There is something that we need to give back. And it's not just about we when we think of repaying a debt, या जैसे इन्होंने अभी बताया था, that about some people who are rich enough, who paid their taxes, because normally we say it is the well to do who pay taxes. जो गरीब हैं वो टैक्स नहीं पे करते हैं, which could be true, but somewhere I think, and this I used to discuss with Mr. Bhatia also, that even the poor are actually subsidizing a lot of things for us. I would just like to show this small picture. ये हम लोग दिल्ली के सड़कों में बहुत देखते हैं, and I'm sure even in other cities it will be visible. There is this man who is pulling these rods in a cycle, and you see them in the 40 degrees temperature also. You will see them in 5 degrees temperature also. Now somewhere what this person is moving, now I'm not getting into the legality of it, or who's permitting it, but obviously this guy is doing this movement at probably 500 rupees ki dehadi to move these iron reinforcements, probably to make a building which becomes that much cheaper for us. So a lot of the times it is the poor who are actually subsidizing us. So from that perspective also, I feel repaying the debt is probably the best way we could be defining social work. It's not something that we're doing out of our goodness. It's something which we are doing because we need to do it. Investment to restore balance, I think very important, because the world over, and whether it's our country or other places, there is always this natural inertia of the rich getting richer. I won't say the poor are getting poorer, but obviously the divide tends to increase. And therefore when we do social work, there is obviously some sort of balance restoration. Of course you can't talk about the magnitude of it, but yes, at least it's a step in that direction as I see it. It's a fulfilling process of learning and unlearning. This is something which I saw कि when I started doing social work, we all feel कि हमने तो बहुत पढ़ाई लिखाई कर ली है, and we are good at it, and we have a good mind, sound mind. We also have a great heart, but actually not. I think there are a lot of things which we tend to, which I feel that I have been learning when from the social work that I have been trying to do. In fact, there's a lot of unlearning also, and this unlearning is कि हम सब कुछ जानते हैं, because we always feel that we have the right solution, that this is I should not say we, I should say I. When we start doing some work, and जब हम ऐसे लोगों के साथ काम करते हैं जो कि उतने पढ़े लिखे नहीं है, तो हमें लगता है कि we know a lot, and so we need to be sermonizing them, but they have their own thought process, and they have actually got a very sound thought process, because considering the situation they are in, they have their own thought process which needs to be respected, and from which we need to learn. And I think they have immense amount of skills, because it's not just padhai likhai and exam which is a skill. There are various other things which are there to skill, and their life skills I feel are very great. And that's something which I've understood. One of the biggest unlearnings, because unlearning has been my sort of motto for this whole presentation, is कि मैंने ये समझा है कि आई एम नो वन टू बी सॉल्विंग एनीबडीज प्रॉब्लम्स सॉल्व करने की जो जो क्षमता है, द कैपेसिटी है, it is there with the people. It is just a question of being with them. This is something which I learned more when in my pursuit in doing counseling, where I'm now volunteering for an organization, and there this is what it is said always, and this was a big learning slash unlearning for me, that you are not the problem solver. You are not supposed to be doing that. You are supposed to be just empowering and giving that space to a person to understand what his problems or her problems are and how to solve it. So so I feel social work is a process where we learn and unlearn. I'll speak probably a bit more of that when we go ahead. And it has definitely been about becoming self-aware. I've learned a lot about myself. मेरी क्या thought processes होती है. This is something when I've been pursuing social work for quite some years now, but when you are in job, you don't get the time to really think about what is going within you. हमारे अंदर क्या सोच चल रहा है? What is it that where are our biases coming from? Where are our judgments coming from? So I think this is something that we learn. We learn about our own flaws. I've learned about my own flaws, about where I probably was being pretty rigid, or probably where I was being too flexible also. And it's not, and this process of correction is, I think, a lifelong process, but it definitely gives happiness when you're able to look within and see what are the things, where is it that we are coming from. So this is, I think, been is also a major part of social work. It gives you that space to actually be seeing what are your biases, because when you're working with a community and you see somebody doing something in a certain way कि जल्दी शादी हो रही है, so suddenly you start feeling irritated कि इतने जल्दी क्यों शादी कर रहे हैं? But then again, you also see that there is an irritation in you. They are not able to accept their point of view. Why? So why, I would say, evergreen field. I mean, I will start with what is probably more gross and then go to the subtle stuff. So evergreen field, there is no poverty of poverty. I'm not meaning our country. Please don't get me wrong. I think because poverty, is any form of deprivation. So it's not something to do with just lack of wealth. It is about being in any form of distress. And I think there is a lot of poverty in the world. And so this is a field jahan kabhi mandi nahi aayegi. So it's one place where you can be working, where even people can pursue as a career, because it is always needed. There is no pressure of bottom line here. ये सबसे बेस्ट चीज होता है कि आप कितने भी फंड लाओ और जितना आप उस फंड को खर्च कर दो, you show that you are actually doing a great job. The more you show yourself to be naked, if I may use that term, the more, and of course naked because you've done something, not because you're not got something, the more people will actually think of giving you. So that is one thing which I was always happy, that you don't have to cut costs. Of course you do cut costs on things which are not probably related to the work, but otherwise there is no such bottom line. Safety and security of me, my near dear, and my future generations. I say this today because, especially in the Indian context, and I'm sure even if we have people joining from abroad, they would be having their parents, their loved ones in India. And in India today, especially as one ages, I think one is more at more at the, if I may use the term, mercy of service providers. We have so many service providers. I think every Indian household, especially where the senior citizens are there, the number of service providers actually outnumber the number of people. So if we are to ensure our own safety, it is necessary that we work for these class of people, because if we ignore them, then obviously that inequality will tend to come, and there would be, that is when various times the social ills come, and there are those unfortunate incidents which happen. We also, when we talk of future generations, again, I think all of us would like that hamari jo vanshaj hain, they are surviving in a world which is more equal, where people are more uh, uh, everybody is having relatively similar standards of life, so that there is not so much of discord. And also, when we talk of social work, we look at things like environment and all that. So even there, for the future generation, it is very necessary. So that is another. So yeah, so experiencing true joy. So this is one thing जो मैंने realize किया है कि the ever since I've been here last 3-4 years, most of the people I've met, they have really been, whether it's any strata of the society, I've always found that there are people with whom I really like to interact. This was one, in fact, this was one of the एक जो मेरे में डर था when I was leaving the government. I was always feeling I don't have that MHA का card. I do not have a gadi written Bharat Sarkar outside it. So, how will the world treat me? I'm a commoner, if you use the term. And I think somewhere unconsciously we start seeing ourselves as something different when we are in the government. But let me tell you, my experience has been great, because wherever I've gone and met people, it's always been a much more cordial, a much more, of course we do show respect even in our organizations, and whether it's the government, but somewhere that respect is also tinged with the hierarchy or the need to comply. But here it's sheer respect, sheer love, affection. So that's something which, and I will talk about a few amazing people that I've met, but this is something which I think has been my experience there. And you tend to get in touch with hearts, क्योंकि social work में बहुत ज्यादा दिमाग नहीं लगाते हैं, जब बात करने लगते हैं, दिल से दिल बात करने लगते हैं, तो somewhere we tend to get a peek into people's heart. There is no really anybody trying to make because nobody is trying to market something, and it's all about the feelings that people are having. And so when you tend to talk to people that way, somewhere you also get in touch with your own heart. So this is something which I feel is another reason, if we have to go back to our core, social work does definitely help. Yes, and observing all those small coincidences, which are basically miracles, and this is something which I've become more and more aware. When we talk of an higher power, some powers do act, and ये मैंने हमेशा देखा है कि NGOs mostly. I'm not talking of the big ones, and I'll talk a bit about NGOs. We normally go into a year with just plans what to do. We really do not know पैसा कहाँ से आने वाला है, but somewhere at the end of the year, lot of things which we decide on, they tend to get manifested, I mean, and it really gives you so much of pleasure to see that's happening. I had shared today earlier in the group also, out of nowhere yesterday at 10:30 I get a call from Arjun Israni Saab, and he just says ki, look, I want to be contributing this much. And let me, I mean, it's not that he wanted it, but I just felt that I should share it. He's actually told me that I will be contributing 5 lakhs to the various charities that you're working in. Of course, this was probably somewhere it may have been my hidden agenda for the reason I'm doing this presentation, but not really. My idea was to share my experiences, but this is how it comes. So this is somewhere you feel कि कहाँ से ऐसी चीज होती है. So you tend to be in awe कि there are some powers working about which you have no knowledge, and it gives you a good feeling, because these powers seem to be working for the benefit of you and those around you. When now this is something which pardon me if I'm sounding a bit sermonizing, because I'm doing it, but then there could be a question in the minds of many कि कब करना चाहिए, because a lot of time it is कि हम retire होंगे करेंगे, या we need to be financially secure. And so there I would like to say that there is a lot of social work which doesn't necessarily have to be working with a not for profit. So I feel that it's here and now. अगर आपको लगता है कुछ अच्छा काम करना है, you can definitely do. Spontaneity is something, because as I said, social work में दिमाग नहीं लगता, दिल लगता है. If you feel you want to do something, कर देना चाहिए. जब हम सोचते हैं कि इसके बारे में मैं सोचता हूँ, then the mind starts working. अरे इसमें क्या होगा, तुम्हारे साथ क्या होगा. So if you really want to do something, just do it. And as I said, money is not the necessary thing. Even if we talk to somebody in distress, more than talking, listening to somebody in distress, even that is a great act of social work that you're doing. So because a lot of times people come to you with problems, and actually they are not trying to seek solutions. They just want somebody to be hearing them out. So even that is, I would say, a form of social work. And when else? Well, when one is willing to learn and unlearn, as I told in the beginning, मेरे लिए, this has been a big discovery, and this is something I think when social work में जाते हैं, we have to understand we are not the problem solvers, we are not the know all. There are a lot of people who know it. And the day we feel that we are the know-all, then, probably that joy of doing social work, wo khatam ho jata hai. So this is something that, I've learned that others are perfectly capable of improving their lives. And I've unlearned that, we know it all, because, we do not know the situation which many people are going through. Unki zindagi mein jo ho raha hai, humne kabhi experience hi nahi kiya hai. So it will be wrong to say, in fact, this is a joke. I don't know, probably my sister is also attending, but my sister was pretty bad in mathematics. She was 8 years elder to me, and there was a time when she was forced to learn mathematics. And I was in sixth, and she was doing some teachers training, and we were abroad. So actually, I was helping her learn maths. And guess what? She is one of the best maths teachers, because she knows what is it that goes into a child who is afraid of maths. So it's always about us understanding that we don't know it all. Thinking small, I wrote the small and big because I think this is something we need to understand. हम यहाँ दुनिया को नहीं बदल सकते हैं, because you see, in a corporate world, in the government, it's always about numbers. I remember when I was in Concord, strategic plan में मैं लिखता था think big. And ever since social work started, it's always think small, because again, we don't have the capacity. If we start really thinking big कि हमें पूरा change करना है, then वो तो उसके लिए तो सरकार बैठी है. We are here to provide those incremental changes, where we can provide a connect, because there is a lot of things which is happening. How much ever we may be critical of government, I feel the government is the biggest NGO, because it does not have any vested interest, and it is doing something because it is mandated to do it. It's got the money also. So, but it's about the connect. For instance, slum children education, which one of my NGOs does, it's not about educating the children in going into higher classes. It's about teaching them when there are 4 and 5, when they cannot approach the MCD schools, or uske baad mainstreaming them into the government system, after which they are fine. So similarly, remedial education. So these are various things that we can be doing, which are small steps, and it needs to be small, because अगले साल भरोसा नहीं है फंडिंग मिलेगा कि नहीं. So it's always good that we do small steps. And usually what I've seen कि जब हम कोई एक मॉडल बनाते हैं and that model becomes good, then people tend to bring in money. But again, we should never aspire कि हमें कुछ बहुत बड़ा करना है. छोटे छोटे काम होते रहेंगे, उससे बड़ी बड़ी चीजें हो जाती है. I've used this term that, when we can avoid being a tribal representative, passionate crusader, WhatsApp activist, etc. Because you see what happens, मैंने जो देखा है, when you start doing this work, you obviously see a lot of pain around you, see a lot of, unfairness. And एक्टिविज्म में जाना एक बड़ी एक नेचुरल चीज होती है. नाउ आई एम नॉट अगेंस्ट एक्टिविज्म. ऑफ कोर्स एक्टिविज्म हैज वन अस इंडिपेंडेंस, इट्स डन अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स फॉर अस. बट as a social worker of today, if you tend to get too much into the activism mode, what usually happens is that we tend to get diverted. We also then tend to become exclusive, and I think one of the most important what do you say, characteristics, or one of the important quality that a social worker needs to have, is that they need to be inclusive. We need to be able to see everybody's point of view, and for that, I think we will need to stop being a representative or an activist, and just go in and do what we can. When we can, be in touch with that child in us, very important. I mean, of course, the most joyful times I have is when I go to the school where, small children are there, when we see the twinkle in their eyes, when we see them. And amazing, I think children are amazing, because उनके यहाँ you can see genuine happiness, you can see genuine smile, which is something which we don't see in each other. Because obviously it's not that we are to blame, but we have got so many worries, but that child is so joyful, so it really gives you a great feeling. So I think we need to be comfortable with that. We need to be comfortable, being with the child. कई बार हम अपने आप को ऐसे program कर लेते हैं that we need to be really serious about things, and then what happens is that we somewhere tend to lose touch with ourselves, that child in us. So I think that's important. And yes, when we can surrender to that higher power, very important. See, today, for instance, a lot of the donors of some of the charities where I'm involved, which are basically PSU donors, they are not able to release grants. There are certain reasons for that, which I will not like to go into. Does that frighten me? Definitely, it does worry me. So what do I do? Every day, I go in front of my creator, and मैं उनको बोलता हूँ, and I repeat Gandhi ji's words that social work or working for the poor is God's work, and I tell him, look, this is your work I'm doing. So please bring me the solution. So that's sort of a surrender. Of course, I'll not call it, I mean, somebody can treat it as escapism, but actually, I think that surrender is important for us to realize our own limitations. क्योंकि this is very important कि हम समझें कि हम सब कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं और कुछ और चीजें हैं जो कर रही हैं. So I think that surrender का भावना जो है, that is very much necessary if you have to do social work. Otherwise, you will, tend to feel irritated that you are not able to do something because you would have felt कि नहीं मुझे तो ये करना ही था, or you will feel irritated about somebody else not doing, what he or she should be doing. Okay, where may I think we all talk of charity begins at home. I have slightly modified this. For me, charity begins with me alone. One of the biggest things that I've learned, especially after I started my counseling journey, is that, you know, until I'm not kind to myself, I cannot be kind to anybody else. So we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to give permission to our own feelings, to our own, the fact that we can fail, the fact that we can feel that we need not always be okay. We need not always be a model. So I think being charitable to oneself and taking care of one's own self, because this is one problem. In fact, I'll just share this. In the counseling journey, I find most of my clients are people who go out of the way to help. और होता क्या है कि सबको हेल्प करते हैं, एक इंपॉर्टेंट पर्सन को वो हेल्प नहीं करते, खुद को नहीं हेल्प करते, एंड देन दे एंड अप इन अ प्रॉब्लम. सो आई थिंक charity, if you have to do charity, you have to start the charity with yourself. Take care of your own needs, your health, your own feelings. I think that's very important. And yes, where else you can do it? At home you can do it with your relations. I mean, again, there are so many cases of being people seen as social workers, but at home who tend to be always in the boil, क्योंकि बाहर they are exhausted with showing their kindness, so अंदर आके then they tend to become demanding. We are humans. So I think when we go in that order of helping, I think that where में घर जरूर आता है, as long as we can even listen to somebody, as I said earlier, कि सिर्फ सुनना बहुत होता है, कुछ सोल्यूशन देने की जरूरत नहीं है. कई बार सोल्यूशन देते हैं तो लोग उल्टा परेशान होते हैं, क्योंकि दे फील कि मेरे को तो ये मालूम है, तुम क्यों बता रहे हो. आई जस्ट वांट यू टू लिसन नाउ. With our helps, I've talked about this. Most upper class Indian households are generally outnumbered by its domestic help. तो सोशल सर्विस करने की कहीं जरूरत ही नहीं है. आप हमारे जो घर में मेड है उसका एक बैंक अकाउंट खोल दें, उसके लिए कुछ एक कंसेशनल फाइनेंस दें. आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ अस डू ऑल दीज थिंग्स, बट आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू से दैट इवन दिस इज अ पार्ट ऑफ doing a social work, because there is so much of need around us that we really don't have to step out. As part of government and corporate world also, I think there is a lot of social work. Any sort of enterprise, if you talk of India today, the biggest problem is that we talk of joblessness. मैंने ये देखा है, it's but when you offer jobs, people don't take it, because again there is some dignity involved, or something that they are looking for. So, and everybody is looking in for a job in an organization. So if an organization could actually be bringing jobs, I know it's the time of AI and people are talking of cutting, but in this country especially, where there is so much of population growth, whatever we may say, there is a growth, and this growth is actually happening in the lower strata of the society. I think this is one major thing that we can do. Yeah, Mr. Bhatia, whom I showed, he started an enterprise which, of course, went on to become very successful. But his main aim was to provide employment to people in India so that they can provide services to people in US. So even that's a great activity that we can do. And yes, in the government and corporate world, this is one thing I like to share, is that I think we need to pay attention to our smallest of stakeholders. हम जब छोटे ठेकेदार का ना लाइस काटते हैं amounts, we do it in negotiation, we say it's in the benefit, but usually what happens is that that person will end up cutting the pay of the lowest person in his organization. So this is something which I learned. So of course we can say, as really good corporate citizens, we need to be economizing, but I think at least when we're dealing with the smallest of stakeholders, we need to be a bit more liberal, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who probably need that. And with NGOs, I have said last, because I feel that you don't necessarily have to get into the NGO world to be doing social work. Now, if you are talking of an NGO, how? This is the way I probably have also gone, and I would like to share that we need to see what is our interest, because hamare, we are all human beings with certain passions. Sometimes we are passionate about education, sometimes we are passionate about health or environment, and many times ये shape होता है from our own experiences in life, क्योंकि हमने एक चीज देखा है कि education ना होने से क्या फर्क पड़ा. So I feel that it's very important we choose our field. We need to select an NGO if you're looking. Now, NGOs को जो मेरा अभी तक assessment है, I have divided them into three categories. एक है जो corporate types है. Corporate types mean, I mean the big NGOs, the big foundations. They are nothing short of being corporates. And they need to employ the best of minds, and they need to be also compensated. So of course there is a complaint normally कि ये लोग क्या करते हैं, बहुत सारा पैसा administrative cost में डालते हैं. But obviously a career social worker is also looking for money. So obviously there would be a lot of money going into administration. So it's not that they are not doing a job, because they are big. So they are probably not the government, but they are somewhere there. So their reach is much more. So anybody who wants to enter can think of going there. This could be even a career shift. गवर्नमेंट ग्रांट टाइप जो है ये थोड़ा अभी शायद थोड़ा कम हो रहा है, बट दिस इज वन सेट ऑफ एनजीओ जो मैंने डिस्कवर किया कि गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम निकलती है तो उसके आधार पे एक एनजीओ बन जाता है, who again using the words of what JL Singh साहब सर आपने यूज किया था when we were apprentices in Jamalpur, it is not about know how there, it's about know who. So वो know who वाले जो एनजीओs हैं वो होती हैं, these my personal experience, they need to be avoided, because then you are actually going away from what you want to get into social work for. And the third one, which I find most conducive, are the middle of the road ones. These are basically those NGOs where the management is essentially pro bono. These are people who already have taken care of their needs, and they are basically in that NGO for the passion of that NGO. Here definitely even the administrative costs are much lesser. But having said that, their reach cannot be as big as probably the corporate NGOs. But yes, this is the sort of NGO which I have been involved in, and I feel most comfortable. But that is my this thing. Now, what is the type of contribution we want to do? So this again becomes very important. Again, it doesn't have to be always. One thing I realize is कि हम अगर ये बोलें कि हम commit कर सकते हैं रोज. You see, like the NGO on some children's education, a lot of people approached and said कि हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे. But the point is, जब volunteer हम पढ़ाएंगे, we the day हमारे घर में some relative is coming or there is something else, we'll not go, and we anyway see ourselves as a volunteer. So basically, doing the day-to-day work is not something which I would normally recommend. It also puts a lot of pressure into us. But the areas we can work, resource mobilization, again by resource, I just don't mean money. I mean people. Like Mahavir International, where I'm the honorary chairman. So, I'll call this a resource mobilization which happened. Again, it was a bit of the Almighty's doing. So around 6 months before he retired, Vinay Agarwal, IRSME officer of the 89 batch, he contacted me and said, यार मैं retire हो रहा हूँ और उसके बाद ना मुझे I want to be in the social sector. So my initial response was a bit muted. I said ठीक है सर पहले retire हो जाएं फिर मिलते हैं, because a lot of people express this and then they run out of that steam. But actually then once he retired, he told me कि yeah, I'm now retired. Let's understand what I can do. And in Mahavir International, we were having this great problem that the setup was going up. We didn't have somebody who is like looking after the HR aspects or the admin aspects of this place. And he's joined, and he is taken to this so seamlessly. And really, there's been a great improvement. And I pride myself with the fact कि ये जो resource है ये इस NGO में आ सका. So any sort of किसी को किसी से मिलाना, that also is resource mobilization. Of course, money also is. You can be doing things administration like what is doing today, or compliances. The biggest problem for NGO is today's compliances. And the loyal workers down below, they do not understand the nuances of getting an ATG or a 12A or an FCRA certification. And this is where we all can contribute, because we definitely will have the better idea of how to go about these things. Mentoring and motivating social workers is, I think, one of the key functions if you are going to be more grassroots. It's not about doing the work of a social worker. उनको थपथपाना, उनको थोड़ा बहुत guide करना, I think that is a much a bigger contribution. And of course, financial contribution is definitely something that we all can think of doing. For me, There are 3 E's which I feel are important for social work: example, engagement, and empowerment. When I talk of example, I say because I feel the poor are normally aping the rich. So आज अगर हम ये देखते हैं and we tend to complain that the poor are being rude or the poor are having no sense, somewhere it is due to the way we are behaving, and this I think is a very major issue. So example is something which can be easily set. You don't have to be involved with anybody, but if we can conduct ourselves in the way we feel is being ethical, is being kind, is being compassionate, it will definitely be taken in by those who are down below. And that's what, if you remember in the beginning, Mr. Bhatia also said in his thing that हम भी चाहेंगे कि आप भी आगे जाके कुछ ऐसे करें. So this comes from example only. Engagement, I think, is very important because मुझे क्या लगता है कि especially in our country, those who are really very underprivileged, they somewhere feel कि they are not part of the mainstream at all. वो मुख्य धारा में है ही नहीं है, वो कहीं फ्रिंज में है. वो हमारे यहाँ आके कुछ चीजें लेके चले जाते हैं. They don't have the confidence, and we are responsible for that because our interaction with the poor is limited to giving him puri and chole during a bandara or giving him that kurkure ka chips in front of the traffic light. Again, I won't say it's wrong. It's a very good feeling we are having, but somewhere there is this differentiation. जब उनको हम ये सोचने दें कि आप भी मेरी तरह हो या मैं भी आपकी तरह हूं, so I think that makes a big difference. That gives them that confidence, which can make them actually come up in life. I will be showing in the end now a few examples of how this happens. And then, of course, empowerment, which, as I said, there are these 2, 3 areas: health and education, disabilities. All these are places where we can definitely empower. Health may I include preventive health. I think this is a very big need. It's not about curing, because this prevention is something which needs to again go down to the society, because today, especially in urban India, and I think also in rural India, the poor are getting more and more unhealthy. So that's where healthcare becomes important. We do certain interventions of these types. And population control, yes, I feel that's, if you ask me in India what is the bane, I would say the 3 biggest bane: population, population, population. It's period. Because we can talk of our total fertility rate coming down, but I can take you to the Mirabag slum, and you can only thing you can see is kids. And when I walk Vasant Kunj ke colony mein raat ko, the only thing I see is dogs and cars and probably Swiggy guys. So children are absent, and there you only see children. So obviously this is a divide. And healthcare initiative, engaging with the people there, making them understand how their health get affects when they produce more children. I think these things become important. So these are the title 3s. I end off with certain examples, and these are more examples closer home of people who are really doing a great job. On the right side of the screen is the secretary of Jamalpur Alumni Association, Mr. Sushil Luthra. He is looking after one of the centers of one of the NGOs, Goduli, where I'm involved. And you see, you in the top, of course, he's interacting with the social workers there. But down below, I must share with you the job he did. There were 6, 7 kids, in the Basti nearby that center, Joki, who had dropped out of school. They were at the age group of 8, 9, 10. Because क्या होता है, इनके families migrate करते रहते हैं. They go to village, they come back, they don't have the papers, their attendance is not there. Mr. Luthra actually took pains at looking at the level of each of these kids. And the photo down below is that he himself went to a municipal school to, of course, with the social worker to get these children admitted. No, I must admit, I never have done that. But this is, now you can say ki 6 bacche, but for those 6 kids, their life changed. They would have otherwise remained uneducated. He was able to put them into that Mukhya Dhara or mainstreaming. Of course, they could again stutter. That's a different issue. But this is something, this is an example of, it's both an example and engagement. On the left on top, this is Rajaji Meshram of 92 batch. He's been, I had shared what he's been doing, and he's been doing it with his daughter and also Archana, his wife, helping him off and on. But he's been engaging with the children in the homeless shelter at Nizamuddin. There are around 40, 50 children. Here he's seen interacting with this kid. I forgot his name, but this kid knew tables up to 19. And उससे जब पूछा कि कैसे मालूम, बोलता है मेरे पिताजी ने मेरे को बोला पहाड़े हमेशा याद रखो. So again, the pitaji is a laborer, but even he's got this this sort of a wisdom to tell his son that you should know Pada, and Rajaji was actually interacting with him and teaching him how he can learn to number in English. And that is the photo. What is striking is the way he's dealing with him. It's not a photo where it's a photo where there is a person conversing. It's not a person sitting at a high pedestal and telling him something. And the kid is also totally at ease. Down below is Vinay Agarwal. He's as I said, joined Mahavir here. He's motivating our social workers of Mahavir International, giving them gifts on Deepavali. Again, these are small gestures. These social workers, I would say, are a really neglected lot. And जब भी कोई डोनर भी आता है यही बोलता है, अरे पैसे हम उसके लिए देंगे, बेनिफिशियरी के लिए, आपके लोगों को क्यों दे? But at the end of the day, if the social workers are not taken care of, then how will they take care of the beneficiaries? So these are some examples of those sort of engagement. These are again photos of Rajaji having taken kids to the railway museum. Again, for these children, who will be shooed away from such a place to go there and understand various things, it's really a great gesture, I must say, that he did, and it makes them walk out confident, walk out feeling that they do belong to this world. So that's a very great thing. And empowerment, so this is a tutorial education which is happening on top over there. For again, remedial education is very important क्योंकि ये बच्चे स्कूल में तो चले जाते हैं, कोई पढ़ाने के लिए नहीं होता. So tutorial education for kids between 6 to 10th, where we really put strict parameter that the kid needs to be, it's free, but you need to be attentive, because let's face it, not all children will really do well in studies, but the children who can do, they should be given the chance. So that's what we are trying to do at Goduli there. From 6 to 10th, around 70 children we are educating. Down below is a photo of my sister who is welcoming all the children. These are all pre-primary children. Again, all the love, the warmth. These kids normally they belong to households where domestic abuse, alcoholism and all could be so big, and I've seen that when they come to school they're really joyous because it's like a release for them. So that's a photo of that. Right side, we are concentrating a lot on women because that's where we feel the crux lies. If the world has to improve, the women have to be made empowered more. So these are preventive healthcare training programs. For down below is of the Anganwadi workers. Again, most of the photos you'll see there are only smiles and joys. And pardon me if I'm sounding a bit rude, but I've never seen this sort of smile in most of the government meetings I've gone. It's always been terse faces, morose. But here you actually find people, joyous, talking, chit chatting, enjoying. So these are some training programs that are happening over here. So this I thought I'll share. Some amazing people that I've met. I'll just conclude. I think I maybe have gone a bit more than the time. Dr. Y.P. Anand, he is the retired CRB. He's the one who started Goduli, which has been providing elementary education for thousands of children from 1994 till now. He's 91 and he still comes to hoist the flag. He's a phenomenal person. Ashok Kumar Jain, my co-chair in MID, he's again 75 years young and he runs an NGO like a business. Unko maja aata hai fund raise karne ke liye. He goes everywhere and he's a man totally without any ego, and he does marketing for the NGO, but all with the need for a noble purpose. Dr. Rajesh Kumar is founder of SPYM. He's a doctorate from JNU and who's been working on drug demand reduction, which is again a very huge area, especially among the underprivileged. Anurag Kashyap, he's a person who left Island FS and is now running an enterprise of waste picker women, and they make beautiful products, candles, diyas, diaries, calendars, a lot of things, and actually make money, which gets pushed back into the social work of financial inclusion, educational empowerment. Aman is a 30-year-old, 32-year-old young man who came from a very humble background. His mother was gatekeeper of Delhi College of Engineering. He actually cracked the JEE, he joined the same Delhi College of Engineering, became an engineer, worked with Paradeep Phosphates, and now he's come back to the NGO sector. So these are people who कहाँ थे ये लोग, you tend to think when I joined social work, I met. There are many more people. I've already talked of some examples already in the earlier part of my presentation. These are some of the NGOs that I'm associated with. Of course, this presentation can be shared and anybody wants to have a look at it can have a look at it. I don't say they are the only ones, but these are ones about which I'm aware. And I finally conclude with a small YouTube film which was shot by Ashka, who is Rajaji and Archana's daughter, on the Nizamuddin homeless shelter children. And I'll rest my case after that.
Na 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 wants to grow a big feet. They have dreams like you and me. Where will they go? Let us see. I taught them to sing. They were happy to learn a cool thing. They sang on the stage. It made a difference I could gauge. They have dreams like you and me. Where will they go? Let us see. They can be much more. Maybe a happier path is in store. Can you help the kids? A small donation from you can open this. They have dreams like you and me. Where will they go? Let us see.
So that's all I have. And I conclude by thanking all of you for the act of charity of listening to me, and I would say listening to me over time. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Narayan. Thank you very much. You've blown us away. I'm absolutely speechless. I open the floor to discussion. If anybody has anything to say.
I'm Sarabjit Singh. It was a fascinating talk, and I think you embody the essence of Indian religious thinking, where you have to share with your not so well off or the Lord, and that's our persons of seva and everything which our religious people treat, and you are actually implement them in practice, where you have to look at everybody as you're same. And I think it's a fantastic work, and more power to you. I only one thing to say that why is it that you've seen it there that even though the more not so fortunate, the lower part, the poorer people have managed to get a certain amount of political empowerment, why are they not able to get access to economic resources and more social equality? Has your experience with working in NGOs given you any idea why this has happened in our society?
So, sir, again, my feeling is that at the end of the day, for the poor to actually come out of poverty, it is about them doing it on their own. And many times what happens that when we just tend to give and not empower them, then there becomes an issue. So it's more about mentoring them, about making them see where is it, what are their strengths, and coming out of it. But it is usually about working. So it's working their way out, for which we can at best be facilitators. So I think somewhere that focus on facilitating people to actually come out of poverty has been lacking. Of course, there are democracy has its own issues, but as I see it, ये एक problem है that we don't give them that space to realize what their strengths are और कैसे वो बाहर उससे निकल सकते हैं या कैसे और they can be better off.
All the politicians talk about poverty alleviation. Why don't they do what you are doing?
Sir, again, I will say a politician does a lot of things. I mean, this is my again feeling. Of course, we know at the macro level a lot of things happening, but a politician actually I've seen, ministers dealing with hundreds of their constituents जो उनके पास आते हैं and who are talking about all sorts of things. They just listening to them is a big thing. But coming back to what you're saying, sir, वो तो pulls and pressures of the democracy होती है. So I will not like to say that they have their role. Some of them are doing their role, but as it happens in all fields, sir, कुछ अच्छे होते हैं, कुछ नहीं होते हैं, कुछ के अपने interests होते हैं. So that's all I would like to say on that, sir.
What do you say about the Minimum Wages Act?
So yeah, so minimum wages is something else which I
Can I come in onto the
yes sir.
Sir. Narayan, if I may? Two inputs I wanted to give. One is you never repay the debt.
Right, sir. I agree.
There are three runs we are with, three debts. One to the devas who provide us with everything in nature. We can never replenish. We can drink water and bring out something else. We can't drink the other thing and bring out water. So it's a one-way traffic. We can't repay. What we get from our parents and our ancestors, we can never repay. But what we get from society, I call it payment of a interest on a soft loan. That's all that you can do. You can never touch the principal, not even the entire interest. That's one. Second, people think, how do I start? The moment you determine that you start, opportunities come. I'll just share for 2 minutes if Ranjit agrees, share my experience. I was vice president of Shalimar Paints. On the breakfast table, my youngest daughter, she asked me, Daddy, you have only one hand, but you have done so well for yourself. How about doing something for those who are similarly placed? I told her that, good question. I've never thought of it because I thought of only excelling myself. 2 days later, there was an advertisement in the paper, Times of India. Royal Commonwealth Society for the Blind looks for a regional director for dealing with this thing. And they had specification. They wanted somebody 30 to 40 years of age and an MBA. My daughter said, you apply. I said, I'm 50 years old. I'm not an MBA. She said, you apply. I applied. And the Ferguson guy who came and saw me, Srivastav, he told me that you don't qualify as per the specification. I put up my name for the interview, I said. And I got the job. And that opened my life. That I worked for 9 years as a paid employee. And I opted to retire in 87 when I became 60. 87 till now, I am a volunteer. Longest innings I've done 28 years of volunteers I've done. I'm doing still. And most fulfilling. And the beauty was, when I opted to retire in 87, I had a pension, railway pension of 7,000 rupees. I had no pension from my job. And I had a savings of about 18 lakhs, of which for 15 lakhs I bought a flat. I started with that. My pension started increasing beyond my expectation. Now that I am working as a volunteer taking no money, Government of India is paying me every month.
Right.
At least 3 to 4 times the money I can spend. I can't spend, I share. So the moment you determine yourself, what Narayan said about somebody high up above, he listens to you provided your determination is not emotional and it is total. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You are an inspiration, sir, really.
I have just one thing to say. In my experience, what I have seen is that the degree of ambition on the part of the people that I have come into contact with is amazing. Every person that I have spoken to wants their kids to do better than they've done in life. And that has been a source of great inspiration to me. And I feel that there is no amount that one can do which will really fulfill what we need to give back to society. So I give you full marks for this
Virdi sir, regarding minimum wages, yes, sir, I fully endorse. That's a very big starting point because it's always seen that when the poor get money, they actually spend and they actually ensure that the ecosystem gets more money because they'll be buying from a Redawala and that Redawala will also benefit from that. So they'll normally go to the smaller business houses. So yes, I think that's a very important aspect which we should see because when the rich get money, it normally goes into a bank and it goes into shares and mutual funds and other places. So yes, sir, I fully endorse the minimum wages is something where a start is definitely has to be made or at least implemented. I think that's very important. Sir. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a structural change which comes from the government. I think it will go a long way.
Right.
Yeah, I probably, when I raised my hand, this is Dr. Subramaniam. I think the first was to compliment how comprehensive the discussion was. I think bringing in the element of non financial resources, the value of motivation and inclusivity, I think were the highlights for me. And I think the ability to distinguish between the three broad groups of the NGOs and how each one can bring a certain degree of specialized benefit. There is one aspect which I would like to just add. Doesn't take away the importance of all things that we are looking at in terms of paying back to whatever limited extent we can. I also feel that the minute you are able to empower people, be it in terms of their education, health, or potential for inclusivity and achievement, we are automatically reducing the potential for a lot of crime, waywardness, drug abuse, and we are actually creating a very, very high value, which individually can often be difficult to measure. So I must compliment you all for this excellent interaction. And I really feel happy that I managed to listen in today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Subramaniam is my brother-in-law, and so of course, सारी खुदाई एक तरफ, बीवी का भाई एक तरफ. He is my जीजा. So, thank you.
I will.
That's it.
I had attended a seminar in Delhi in CII by CII, and there I heard a talk by the chairman of the Piramal Group, and it was an eye opener. But I do not know how many of us will know. He said that out of total districts in India, I don't remember the exact figure, but there will be about 60 to 70 districts where the poverty is so high that if you make a separate country out of this, right, the level of development in that country and the GDP or whatever way you measure it, it will be lower than South Sudan. It was unbelievable. Matlab, you cannot think. But he said this is a statistics by Niti Aayog that they have made a district. The Niti Aayog has made a list of districts where this development index is so poor. And of course, government is spending a lot of money. But the gist of his talk was it is not money that is important. It is a commitment of the people on the ground and the training which matters. He gave some examples of how technology can change this, how this can be done. So, if you want, I can share his presentation to you because I requested him and I got his presentation and I have given it to 2-3 in my meetings. I have given it to 2-3 people. I have presented it to 2-3 people. Of course, not as mine. I said this is what I have heard. Please listen to it. What it says. So it's an eye opener that the way we tackle the problem is not by making more buildings and schools and things like that. It is by working at the ground level with the workers and motivating them. Whether it is a teacher, whether it is health workers, whether it is somebody else. Right. It is how the thing can reach down to the bottom of the pipe. Thank you. I just wanted to share.
Please, sir, I would be very grateful if you can share it.
You can DM me. I don't
I'll,
remember. You
I'll,
can DM me your
I'll do
email
that.
ID and I will share that.
I'll do that, sir. Thank you, sir.
Narayan, thanks a million. This is my first launch session talk, and I'm impressed. This is absolutely wonderful work you're doing. And yes, I'd highly recommended you to Arjun Asrani 61.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
uh,
Thanks a lot, Mel.
and I'm glad that bore fruit. So I would really love to emphasize a couple of things. One is that you do not have to have a lot of money by yourself to start doing charity. And the second thing is this thing about starting charity at home. I mean, you could start with your bai, for example, in India, as you say. Uh, at one point in time, one of these statistics, which till today I often quote, is that if in the U.S., we're the richest nation in the world, and half the people in this country cannot come up with $5,000 to save their lives. So, and again, with what I had, because by the time I was done with years and years of going back to school after I got back here, it was not like I had accumulated a bunch of wealth which I could do anything. Uh, so I started with my students, and the most that a school would do is give them a scholarship and a free ride. What I would do is I had this open door, closed mouth policy, and I would let students come in, tell me what's going on with them, and oftentimes all it really involved was summing what they had said, giving it back to them, taking all their rambling thoughts and giving them a certain direction and some kind of a guide rail. And I'm really proud and happy to say that some of them are now thriving entrepreneurs, and some of them came from broken homes with extremely painful stories of everything from poverty to domestic violence to what have you. And so I really love those 2 points that Narayan brought out, apart from an absolutely wonderful presentation. Thank you, Narayan.
Thank you.
I know the last time, several times I've tried to call you, you were in your Maun Vrat, and I couldn't quite across. So this is good to finally hear your voice in person after such a long time.
I'll give you a ring when I'm not on Monmouth.
Uh, well, thank you, Narayan, for a great talk and set of your actions. Sharing your actions and ideas is wonderful. All I wanted to say was that they are, in addition to money, time, and ideas, this particular group of 50 or 60 people has another extremely valuable skill. We are professional managers.
Right.
And what, in addition to everything else, social service organizations are badly in need of managerial skills, all the way from top to bottom. Even in organizations like, let's say, an IIT or IIM, they need board of governors or board of directors. And the moment government gives these institutions autonomy, more often than not, that autonomy is misused for personal use because there aren't enough people who have both managerial experience, skills, and are willing to run, say, this IIM or IIT, not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of society. So what I'm saying is that I'm not suggesting everybody should try to be a director of IIM Ahmedabad, but uh, uh, all the way from there and to personal wealth, those who have it and want to share it, and time, ideas. And there are a lot of organizations who have the skill of delivering services but need the support. My wife Manjula, for example, for the last 3 years has been working with an organization called Pratham, which is a great organization. And they run skill centers in her hometown. And they have trained, every batch they take 20 or 30 young people, mostly girls, but also some young boys, 18, 20-year-old, and train them in work to support work in hospitals and technician level work, but below that, and in healthcare. Every one of them is placed with a salary of 20,000 rupees or more. And they have trained and placed more than 350 young people. And they become huge earning assets for their and increasing their own self-sufficiency and so on. There are all these so many organizations which have the manpower, well organized and I'm sure Narayan's organization too, uh, uh, who just need our support. And providing that support can bring a lot of good, even if those of us who don't have the time or inclination, check will do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very well done. You have a great head and heart, and you really spoke from the heart. Starting small, that's a great thing you said. Starting within, and in spite of so many setbacks, you keep a positive countenance, manage on. All the very best. Great talk. Loved it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Narayan. Thank you, everybody who has joined in today. It's been a wonderful talk, and we will soon be putting it on YouTube for everyone to access it whenever they want.